Fade to Black Bleach is the third movie based on the very popular manga and anime series Bleach. The first movie was centered around the movie-exclusive character called Senna, the second was Hitsugaya, and this third movie revolves its plot around Rukia. Let's see how this third character-centered movie compares to its predecessors. Is this another cliche, forgettable movie, or will calling back to the memories of Rukia in the series pull on your heartstrings enough to win you over? Before the video begins, remember to subscribe and turn on notifications to not miss any of my future uploads. Movie 3 was released in Japan on December 13th, 2008, while Bleach episode 198 aired on TV that week. Directed by Noriyuki Abe, this movie tells a story about how the memory of Rukia fades away from the Shinigami. This movie does recycle story beats from the previous movies, and even causes you to feel deja vu as moments from the anime are repeated, and we get to see old feuds reignited for the big screen. Fade to Black tells a story about a pair of siblings who disrupt the order within the Soul Society so that they can kidnap Rukia. This movie begins with a pair attacking Mayuri, cutting him with a scythe which makes him forget his memories. Mayuri, who has now forgotten everything, panics and damages his machines, which causes a large explosion to erupt from his research facility. Rukia is then attacked by the mysterious duo, as she falls victim to the same scythe that cut Mayuri. This causes everyone to forget about Rukia's existence, as well as Rukia's own memories being entirely erased. This is a very interesting premise and definitely a stronger opening than the previous two movies. In Karakura Town, it appears that Ichigo has forgotten Rukia. That is until Kon, who happens to be the only one who has not forgotten her, reminds him. Ichigo visits Urahara, who appears to have forgotten both Ichigo and Rukia, and doesn't recall anyone called Rukia, aside from confirming he has records of someone going by that name who frequently purchased items from his store. He then tries his luck at the Soul Society. Ichigo and Kon both arrive to learn that nobody recognizes who Ichigo is, and they treat him like an enemy. Frustratingly, once again, he is an intruder to the Soul Society. Yes, this is another movie where Ichigo and the Soul Society are at odds with each other. In every movie so far, this has been a recurring theme. And it's not just this, you can see that many elements are borrowed from the anime and manga to tell these movie exclusive stories, recreating aspects of the Soul Society arc as well as mentions of Hueco Mundo and its involvement are some of the repeated or borrowed elements within this movie. Returning to Rukia, we see that she has been taken to the Rukon district. She is kept company by the brother and sister pair who kidnapped her. Reassuringly, she does remember that she grew up in the Rukon district. The siblings try to remind Rukia that they used to know each other a long time ago, and she even named them. Rukia doesn't recall any of this and even states she doesn't remember the names that she called them. Meanwhile, Ichigo continues to struggle against the Shinigami. He meets Byakuya and attempts to remind him that Rukia was Hisana's sister, but he is interrupted and battles Renji, which results in some cool flashbacks to occur that call back to their first encounter within the Soul Society arc. I really like this confrontation between the two of them. The placement of the music, the intensity of Renji, and the animation which brings this fight to life. Their stubborn attitudes and determination is what made their feud within the manga feel so enjoyable. Thanks to the plot of the movie, we get another chance to see them battle, but this time Ichigo doesn't waste any time as he activates his Bankai. He taunts Renji to activate his Bankai, but he doesn't remember having one. This is a great scene as Ichigo says to Renji that he developed his Bankai so that he could save Rukia. Without any memories of Rukia, he cannot remember ever attaining it. I thought this was a nice addition to the movie. Ichigo raises his blade in the air with the resolve to make Renji remember, which causes Renji to have a flashback to how he did the exact same stance when they fought in the Soul Society arc. Just when the battle was getting good, Byakuya sadly stops the fight, as he helps Ichigo by directing him to the birthplace of his wife, Hisana, hoping Ichigo may learn more about Rukia if he goes there. This action reveals that Byakuya does have a softer side to him, as he helps Ichigo by giving him information about Rukia's possible whereabouts. It's a great contrast, especially if you compare this to his behavior towards Ichigo in the Soul Society arc. Ichigo arrives in the Rukon district where he finds Rukia and tries to remind her about her forgotten memories, but to no avail. The siblings can see that Ichigo's efforts to remind Rukia about her memories are distressing her, so they escape with her. We are then updated to the whereabouts of Mayuri as we see him imprisoned. Surprisingly, Urahara appears out of nowhere to meet Mayuri. He explains how his memories were confused and compares it to losing his own memories of Rukia. Urahara deduces that Mayuri and Rukia were attacked by the same individual. He helps Mayuri by locating his memories that he regularly particularly backed up, which is rather convenient. It does feel strange and out of nowhere to see Urahara appear. It's not given much context, we just see him there and are supposed to accept it, especially if you consider the fact that he is exiled from the Soul Society, but no explanation or attention is given to that fact. The great thing about the Bleach movies is that we experience events and character interactions which never occur in the manga. Urahara meeting Mayuri and helping him is an excellent callback to his days as a captain and the Turn Back the Pendulum arc. The movies provide great fan service for those who want to see more interactions from their favourite characters. We learn that the siblings hold a grudge against the Shinigami, claiming that they took everything away from them, including Rukia. However, Rukia begins to remember flashbacks of a memory after having seen Ichigo earlier. Ichigo and Kon are then confronted by the Gotai 13, who try to attack the two of them. However, Renji defends them and states that he may not remember Ichigo, but his heart is telling him to trust him. Head Captain Yamamoto eventually arrives, accompanied by the other captains. They intend to capture Ichigo. However, out of nowhere, Urahara interrupts them with his old captain attire on, which doesn't make any sense but looks cool regardless. Once again, another callback to the Turn Back the Pendulum arc. Seeing Urahara with his captain attire along with the other captains is so pleasing to see. It may not make any sense, but I can't bring myself to disagree with this fan service. Urahara requests Ichigo and Renji to go and find Rukia, while he explains to the Gotai 13 what he has discovered regarding their memory loss. He begins to describe his studies on a parasitic hollow who has the ability to erase memories with a scythe that is attached to its body. Urahara deduces that it is this hollow that is controlling the two siblings. Rukia is taken with the siblings to Mayuri's lab, where they intend to destroy the Shinigami by tampering with Mayuri's spiritual machine to cause another reishi explosion. It is pretty evident that these siblings are annoying, especially the girl. Their story just doesn't really make you feel invested or care for them. Personally, the only thing that I really wanted to know was their relationship with Rukia and their past with her, which only confirms that they were only interesting due to their connection to Rukia, who is constantly in their company. It was her memory loss and how she is affected by the events of the movie which helped me to keep my attention towards the siblings. As I mentioned earlier, the siblings believe that the Shinigami are responsible for Rukia being taken away from them when they were children. Rukia notices that the siblings slip up and she realizes that she was a Shinigami prior to forgetting her memories. While Rukia argues with the siblings, Renji and Ichigo begin making their way over to Mayuri's lab. One of my favorite Bankai transformations occurs here. While Ichigo is standing on top of Zabimaru's head, he yells Bankai while absurdly cool explosions occur behind him. This movie just keeps hitting you with over-the-top action which pays homage to the relationships between the characters. It really is the small things. Ichigo and Renji teaming up is super exciting and is an enjoyable way to begin the final confrontation with the yet-to-appear main villain of this movie. Rukia refuses to let the siblings hurt the Shinigami as Ichigo and Renji finally arrive. She remembers them and her memories appear to now be restored. This frustrates the female sibling, who becomes enraged and causes a fusion of the siblings and Rukia to occur. The result of the fusion is super emo goth dark Rukia. I have to just get this out there, I really like how this form looks. It's really cool. She has a great design and a menacing scythe that she is carrying along with her soulless eyes make her feel like a real threat. This new design along with a changed attitude turns the beloved Rukia into a real monster that has lost her sense of reasoning with Ichigo and the others. It appears that Dark Rukia is also hollified as she transforms Mayuri's reishi machine into a giant monster. A battle then ensues between Ichigo and Dark Rukia. He tries his best to hold back his power so as to not hurt her, but Dark Rukia on the other hand is going wild and not holding back at all. Urahara then proposes to the Gotai 13 that they need to destroy the reishi machine within Mayuri's lab so that they can stop the giant hollow from continuing to destroy the Soul Society. In a pretty hype scene, the head captain along with Kyoraku and Shunsui unleash their Zanpakuto and attack the giant hollow. The newly composed music made for this movie makes the attack on the giant hollow feel more enjoyable and exciting. We then see Yoriichi team up with Siphon and even Urahara involving himself in the battle. Now these are moments which you don't see often within the anime. Kenpachi also makes his obligatory rampage in this movie. It wouldn't feel like a Bleach movie if Kenpachi wasn't laughing and attacking the opposition. Meanwhile, Ichigo frustratingly tries to get Rukia to remember her memories, but she continues attacking senselessly. Byakuya then arrives to Ichigo's aid as the other captains along with Urahara make some progress against the monster. Byakuya binds Dark Rukia as he claims it is his responsibility to stop her, as she is getting out of control and is gradually transforming into a hollow. Ichigo then recalls back to when Rukia saved him and his family. The flashback is very relevant and fits well within the context of this movie. It is this connection between Rukia and Ichigo that forms the foundational beginning of Bleach as a whole. I love how this movie pays respect to it through Rukia losing her memories. We already know her impact on Ichigo's life, but in the movie's finale, we see just just how much she means to Ichigo, and how she has made an everlasting impression on him. It is for this very reason that Ichigo cannot stand aside and let Byakuya resolve the battle by killing her. This time Ichigo is going to save her, as we see Rukia share her powers with him in a dramatic flashback, while Ichigo runs his sword through Rukia's chest, driving out the parasitic hollow. The logic seems to be that Ichigo sharing his powers with Rukia would restore her, which it indeed appears to have done. Rukia returns to normal. She reassuringly recognizes Ichigo, confirming that her memories have been restored. Meanwhile, Byakuya and Renji unleash their Bankai and help in putting a stop to the giant monster as the movie begins to wrap up. The siblings who are responsible for this whole movie's plot lay heavily wounded on the ground, as Rukia consoles them. We then see a flashback which provides much needed context to explain why the siblings behaved like they did during the movie. In the flashback, we learn that the two siblings were harassed by a Shinigami who had been possessed by a parasitic hollow, the same one that Urahara earlier had mentioned. Rukia comes to their aid but fails to protect them. She falls unconscious as the Shinigami attacks the two siblings. Urahara explains that Rukia had forgotten these events due to the parasitic hollow. The siblings managed to trap the hollow within their body and hide in Hueco Mundo until they escaped and reunited with Rukia due to their intense desire to return to her. Rukia finally remembers the siblings, but unfortunately they both die from their wounds. The movie concludes with Rukia feeling determined to not let the memory of the siblings fade away again, as she will remember them from now on. Fade to Black centered around the bond between Rukia and Ichigo and focused on Rukia's memory loss, and it proved to be very enjoyable, with the involvement of most of the cast, but not needlessly involving Uryu, Chad and Orihime, which definitely was an improvement on the prior movies which did that. The characters all seem to get a nice spotlight. Ikkaku has a little scrap with Ichigo, the several different captains all have moments to shine during the final battle, even Byakuya has a small role he plays within the movie, as everyone has forgotten Rukia, but for Byakuya it wasn't that easy to completely forget Hisana's younger sister. Also, Urahara's involvement, although out of nowhere, is welcomed and fits well within the story of the movie. His interactions with the other captains and their teamwork while battling is satisfying to see. I definitely think they struck the right balance of supporting characters for this movie, especially when compared to the prior Bleach movies. As to be expected for a feature-length production, the animation here does not falter. The art and animation in general I felt were improved upon from the prior movies, which were very well done in their own right. The story told in Fade to Black features callbacks to the anime series. When characters remember their memories, we get impactful flashbacks to iconic Bleach episodes. Each one fits within the context of the movie. They are done with enough respect that they don't feel contrived or forced into the story. Without a doubt, this movie has similar elements to the prior Bleach movies, taking the concept of forgotten memories from Memories of Nobody, taking the character-centered plot from Diamond Dust Rebellion but improving upon it. Rukia was the right character to base a movie upon, as her bond with Ichigo drives this movie, and fans will easily be able to relate to this due to already knowing the backstory between these two characters, without it having to be shoehorned into the movie's plot like it was with Diamond Dust Rebellion between Hitsugaya and Kusaka. It does have to be said that movie 3 features the best music from any of the Bleach movies. The soundtrack composed for this movie I first heard while I was watching the anime episodes, and immediately looked up the OST, and to my surprise I learned that the music was from the Bleach movie 3 soundtrack. If you're a fan of Shiro Sagisu's Bleach compositions, then this movie is a must-watch. Fade to Black does falter, as with all Bleach movies, in some elements when it comes to its plot. Despite being an improvement on the last two movies, some areas of the story just are not explained as well or felt hard to believe. Like the plot device for everyone forgetting Rukia, it fails to establish what criteria are required for her friends to remember her again. Ichigo remembered her after Kon spoke to him. Renji is convinced to team up with Ichigo because his heart is telling him it's the right thing to do. Rukia meets Ichigo after having a couple of scenes where she suffers a headache or a migraine. She remembers everything at the most convenient moment in the plot, before the final fight and her transformation into Dark Rukia. We don't really get any clarification as to why Ichigo remembered quicker than Renji, or why characters like Byakuya didn't remember until Dark Rukia was defeated. Urahara also decides to help Ichigo, which is done convincingly, as Urahara had made journal entries of the plot up until now, and knew something was up when he couldn't recall anything about Rukia, despite her being mentioned in his journal entries. The issue with his involvement is how he convinces the Soul Society to help him. The Gotai 13 agree with Urahara and Yoriichi, who help them to understand why they feel like they have forgotten someone or something. After explaining his theory regarding the parasitic hollow, which seems like a complete guess by Urahara to be honest, they believe and trust him despite Urahara apparently being an exiled traitor. Urahara's explanation to the Gotai 13 is long-winded and hard to believe. He even explains that they forgot Ichigo Ichigo because his memories are related to Rukia's past, as Ichigo's Soul Reaper powers originated from Rukia, to which Head Captain Yamamoto of course mentions that sharing Shinigami powers is a serious criminal offense, which makes me cringe at how predictable he is. Despite this, like I mentioned earlier, I do like Urahara's involvement. Just how he won over the trust of the Soul Society could have been done better. The only other problem I have with this movie is in regards to the siblings. Well, one sibling in particular. The female sibling, who is so needy, demanding and annoying. Her constant crying and whining was so off-putting. Due to this, it resulted in her not really feeling like a threatening antagonist. I guess ultimately the villains were a pair of confused siblings who were just set up for the real villain, Dark Rukia, who really stole the show in the end. Overall, this movie did not feel like a poorly written filler arc squeezed into a 90-minute movie. I think that this movie does justice to Rukia's character and succeeds in telling an entertaining story revolving around her. It also features great reminders of iconic Bleach moments, and heavy emphasis is placed upon the bond between Ichigo and Rukia. The title of the movie, Fade to Black, explains the context of the movie and makes sense as the memory of Rukia is faded into nothingness. Despite having similarities to the previous two movies, Fade to Black improves upon them and really learns from the shortcomings of Diamond Dust Rebellion. Getting to see characters who don't interact much in the anime and seeing them fight together in this movie and exchange meaningful dialogue was exciting to see. If you really love the characters within Bleach and enjoy their witty banter, sarcastic remarks and playful conversations, then you need to watch this movie. Movie 3 features an enjoyable story along with great animation. It expands upon the dynamic between Ichigo and Rukia and tells a new story which feels very reminiscent of the Soul Society arc, but with a twist. If you have seen this movie, then let me know your thoughts on it. Did you enjoy it or find it not as good as the other movies? Next week I'll be going over the Bleach movie titled Hellverse, so subscribe and don't miss the final Bleach movie review.